I don't want to take anything away from this defense because they can only defend what's in front of them, and they did a pretty damn good job at 3 points. This thrown together at the last minute option offense that Tom Allen threw out there was, Ryan Day made the comment, our offense looked clunky. What looked clunky was Indiana trying to run the option. That the option is just poetry in motion when run by the service academies and Paul Johnson back in the day at Georgia Tech, where the sleight of hand of the quarterback and the spacing and the fluidity, it's just beautiful to watch. Well, they were like, the quarterback trying to, what should I do? It's just, it's just awful to watch and obviously easy to defend, Tony.
Yeah, no, they did. I thought there's still the communication aspect and covering all of the pitchmen that Ohio State did really, really well, because when I asked Jim Knowles, how much did you practice for the triple option and during practice and camp, he said maybe 5 plays, probably less than that. And so they were able to handle that despite not having really prepared for it. So I think, as he said, that's an indicator that this defense can learn or just apply stuff that he's telling them from upstairs to handle whatever they see. But he also said, like, this game, this offense that they faced is an anomaly, really has no bearing. It's like when you face a Navy or an Army or triple option, like you throw this game away in terms of what you're going to do the rest of the year. And as he said, like they still need to see just a regular, basic, standard offense and see how their pass rush is, see how their coverage is. And you'll get a little glimpse, maybe. I'm not even sure I haven't looked at anything regarding Youngstown State yet. I know Kevin has, but the contrast from Indiana to Western Kentucky is going to be stark. And so that's when we'll know a lot more about this Ohio State secondary, more about the pass rush, more about everything, and just how well they withhold the constant barrage of the passing game. And I think that might be where we start to see a shift from Josh Proctor to Malik Hartford there at free safety. And so I think there's going to be we'll know much more after that game. And yet it's still just Western Kentucky. So what will exactly for the rest of the season based on that, I don't know, but we'll have a better baseline of what they can do against the run and the pass once we see them in their friend against Western Kentucky.
And, another thing too is that just Steve's earlier point about people wanting to see Luke Montgomery and Tegra Shabola out there. I've certainly have heard plenty about people wanting to see CJ Hicks out there at linebacker. When you're going against triple option, that you may be a game ready player, but you may not be ready to go against a triple option if you've practiced it 3 times over the course of this year and maybe never faced it as a high school player. So, things are going to have to matriculate, and you're going to have to be patient with the things that are presented in front of you. And I think that Ohio State's defense did a good job. I mean, let's not forget, talking about 2014, what is this witchcraft? What is this bear defense double eagle that we've never seen before? And Ohio State didn't answer the call. Now, Virginia Tech had more dudes than Indiana could dream of having at that point, even though that wasn't a very good Virginia Tech team, but it was a more talented team. But I think Ohio State did a really good job when it came to shutting down Jalen Lucas, who I think is a pretty solid player. He's not a big player, but certainly very solid. Ohio State maybe didn't answer the bell as well when it came to Indiana's best defensive player, Aaron Casey. I mean, he was a hell of a player, and nobody had an answer for Indiana's punter, the true MVP, as Tony and I were both sitting up there watching pregame warmups, and I looked and I said, holy cripes, that guy can boot. And Tony's like, he's got to be from Australia, and he's from New Zealand, which is close enough. But, those are the 3 best players that Ohio State faced. But, there certainly is there's something to be said about it's just not necessarily plug and play and, well, let's just throw this guy aside and put somebody else in there sight unseen just because he plays the same position. Well, without knowing all the nuances, I mean, you're not necessarily helping the cause, and you could actually be doing more harm than good. And generally you are.
Steve, your thoughts about the defense?
Thought they were outstanding. I thought from the first play, it looked like they knew what they were doing. It looked like they had confidence in the scheme. They were triggering quickly. They were getting to the ball. Multiple hats were getting to the ball. They knocked the quarterback for a 2-yard loss on the first play. Josh Proctor blew it up in the backfield. And then JT Tuimoloau and Sonny Styles cleaned it up. And it really, it got better from there. So, I thought they got their hands on some passes. Denzel Burke was spot on with his coverages. One of the plays of the game, Davison Igbinosun on I think it was a 4th down run or a 3rd and long, triggered and came up and made a play on a draw play to stop the ball carrier at a key point in the game. I think to force a 4th down, I believe is what it was. So that was a good play by a cornerback and run support that really stood out in my mind. No interceptions and only 1 quarterback sack, and that was by Hero Kanu, a redshirt freshman who really wasn't talked about a whole lot in the preseason. Where does that leave the pass rush? I want to see more. I want to see, obviously inferior opponent this week, and then whatever they are, Sun Belt Conference USA the next week. But I want to see more out of the pass rush. And people made the comment that the defensive line appeared to be slow, getting off blocks and lethargic, perhaps. And I don't know what to say about that. But I guess again, Indiana terrible, Ohio State outstanding on defense, and we want to see it against a real offense. The real test will be in 2.5 weeks against Notre Dame. Although we'll say Western Kentucky had a 4,000-yard passer last year. So their pass defense is going to get tested before they play Notre Dame.
I'll talk Ohio State defense here in a second, but to the question about Aaron Casey, he is a redshirt senior plus, according to the Indiana roster, whatever the hell that is. So like 9th year senior or something. So no, he's not transferring anywhere. But then again, the way that the NC2A and the COVID year and everything else, there are going to be a lot of guys out there that are going to have doctor on their jerseys because that's how long they're staying in college. But as for Ohio State's defense, one thing I will say is people were upset about quote unquote the sack production. I'm not really sure how you get sacks in the triple option per se, because it is not a passing offense all that much. So there's something to be said there. I think the defense did what it needed to. One of the things that kind of stood out to me was Davison Igbinosun had a PI call that was pretty obvious, but Jim Knowles said that you got a handsy kind of guy, a physical type of corner. I mean, 6'2", big corner. You work on technique. You do not coach away the aggressiveness, but you do coach up the technique. I think he got into a couple of bad positions on a couple of plays too. There's going to be a little bit of a learning curve there. I'll be curious to see when Jihad Carter gets into the mix at safety. I think that's going to be something that's important. But overall, as inept as you want to call the Indiana offense, and time will be the ultimate arbiter of that when we see what the numbers look like in 2 weeks and 4 weeks and 8 weeks and at the end of the season. I think Ohio State did what it needed to do. You can't go out there and create matter. You can only deal with what's in front of you. And I think Ohio State did a good job of that. I think that Ohio State's numbers are going to be equally good going against this Youngstown State offense this upcoming weekend. 52 points against Valpo, notwithstanding. But, I think that the first test in terms of maybe giving up some points, not necessarily a game being in question, will be Western Kentucky. But that's just because they're so vastly different than Indiana and certainly Youngstown State.
I'm going to make the bold prediction that Indiana will average more than 153 yards and 3 points per game.